Well, welcome everybody to Marion Audubon Society's first program on Zoom, and hopefully it'll go pretty good. Our trial run was great, and so we're going to hopefully be able to do better as we go along with this new scenario. Leroy is going to be our presenter, and what we'd like for you guys to do, if you have any questions as Leroy goes along, please post them in chat. And when you post it in chat, we will get to them at the end of the program, not while he's in the middle of talking. So welcome everybody. My name is Josie Muncie, Marion Audubon Society. We're going to have a walk this Saturday at Indian Lake. So hopefully be there, be square at 8:15 a.m. Leroy Simon, please take it away for Perching Birds.
Thank you, Josie. I'll probably be at the walk on Saturday. I've been living in Florida for 36 years now. I came from up north. I came down to Florida and started getting more and more bird photographs, especially the last few years. This first image is a picture of a belted kingfisher at a sunset. Next.
You have to do it.
This is a ground dove that was taken at Fort DeSoto. This ground dove is sitting on top of a fountain. At Fort DeSoto, they have this fountain that's like a pile of rocks, and it doesn't squirt water out, but it bubbles up out of the top of the fountain. Excuse me. Another bird that came near the fountain was a mourning dove. I put perching birds next. I put them on sticks in the area that the birds land on before going to the fountain. This is a black-headed parakeet, or Nandy, they call it. And there was a bunch of these that were sitting on a telephone wire. Every little bit, they'd fly down to the ground. And I wonder then they'd fly back up to the telephone wire. And I walked around to the other side where I could get good light on them. And I see they were picking up seed heads from flowers that were growing there. They would fly up onto the telephone wire and then they would feed on them. This is a broad-billed hummingbird that was taken in Arizona at the Arizona Desert Museum. Another picture of a hummingbird from the Arizona Desert Museum was this rufous hummingbird. This is a belted kingfisher. I took this from a blind. Belted kingfishers are very hard to get close to. So I've never got a close-up of them except from a blind. The only picture I've ever got of a northern flicker is this one. I only got half of them because the other half was behind a bird feeder. This was taken up in Ohio. This is a pileated woodpecker taken in a wooded area near Bellevue. And this is the one they call woody woodpecker. I think everybody's heard of him. This is a red-bellied woodpecker taken at a bird feeder near my house. And most of the time you can't see the red belly, but it's called a red-bellied woodpecker. It does have a very small amount of red on the lower part of the belly. This is the hairy woodpecker. The hairy woodpecker has a little longer bill than the downy, and the male and the males have a red spot on the back of their head. The downy and the hairy look almost alike, but the downy is smaller. It has a smaller bill compared to the rest of the body. This was taken up in Ohio. This one was taken at Silver Springs on a bird walk. The downy has these bars on the bottom of it, underside of its tail feather. This is a ladderback woodpecker. This was taken in southern Arizona around Patagonia near the border. There was a guy that had a bunch of bird feeders in his yard, and he invited me to come and take pictures from his backyard. The same area I took a picture of this Gila woodpecker. The Gila woodpecker, the females don't have that red cap. Just the male has their little red cap.
Okay. Hold on for a second. Let's find out what's going on here. It's not in, the slideshow's not working as slideshow. There's other things showing up here. Would you like to start over? Can you start over?
Start over.
It's working good on this end, Marty. It's working
Okay.
perfectly.
Yeah, what do you see? Do you see other information along the side?
No, you
Included
will
with the
on
side?
your end, but we won't on our end because you're starting the slideshow.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, for the next one. This is the wood black phoebe. It was taken in New Mexico at Bosque del Apache. This Bosque is a big wildlife preserve that's famous in New Mexico. This is the eastern wood pewee or phoebe. It was taken at Joe Overstreet Landing, about 20 miles south of St. Cloud, Florida. There's a road that goes back to Lake Kissimmee. It's called Joe Overstreet Landing. It's a very good place to see birds along the fence. On the other side of the fence, on both sides of the road, they have cattle pasture or grass farm for sod farms. And there's a lot of birds hang out along the fence there. This is a great crested flycatcher that came to my feeder. He didn't actually come to the feeder, he just perched on one of the twigs nearby. And he only came there one day and never came down to the feeder, but he just stood there for a while and I was able to get a picture of him. The only time I've ever photographed this bird. This is a gray kingbird. It's a little bit larger than the other kingbirds and it has a much bigger bill. And I took this picture on the western coast of Florida, opposite Gainesville. The next two kingbirds were taken along near Salt Lake at Bear River Sanctuary. This is called the eastern kingbird. And this is the western kingbird taken in that same area. This is the loggerhead shrike. I was kind of lucky to get him with a cricket or katydid in his beak. I saw this bird on the top of the fence post. I was in the car and I stopped the car and went to take a picture of it out of the window of the car. And he flew down and I missed it. And what my luck, he flew back up on that same fence post with this katydid in his beak. And I got a picture of him with as he was got his prize there. This is the Florida scrub jay. This was taken at the preserve in Deltona. All the pictures I've got of scrub jays I took in Deltona Jay Preserve. It's has quite a lot of jays there. Well, I hit the wrong one. This is the western scrub jay. This was taken in Brigham City. When I was going out west, I looked up people from the Audubon Society, and I hooked up with a guy from the Audubon Society that was feeding birds in his backyard. And he let me come to use his yard he had a blind in his yard, and he welcomed me out there, and I sat in his blind and got some pictures of birds that came to his feeder that I wouldn't see in Florida. This is a blue jay that I took quite a while before I was able to get a picture of a blue jay that was any good. But they're not real common right where I live, but there are a lot of them around. They have some at the discharge park in Ocala. This is a horned lark. This was taken at Antelope Island, about 70 miles north of Salt Lake City. This is a barn swallow that was taken at the wildlife reserve in, thank you. This was taken at a wildlife reserve in Utah. And a tree swallow taken at that same area. There was a bunch of these tree swallows landed on this dead tree. And I was able to get a picture of them sitting. This is a tufted titmouse, and it's sitting on a little twig with a lot of lichen on it. In my feeder in my backyard, I attach twigs to my feeder. Rather than have a picture of a bird on a feeder, I'd rather have them on a natural perch. So I clip, when I'm walking around in the woods, I pick up twigs and sticks and such that make nice perches, and I clip them to my bird feeder. And then a lot of times the birds will land on them before they come up to the feeder to feed. This is a Carolina chickadee. They're quite common down here. They're small birds and they're pretty quick. They usually come up to the feeder and grab a seed and fly off with it. Sometimes if the perch is big enough, they'll sit on the perch and eat it. But they usually just come up, grab a seed and fly off. This is a black cap chickadee, very similar, but it's a little bit different. The black cap chickadee has this area of white on its wing and tail. That's the only difference I see myself between the black cap and the Carolina chickadee. This is a white-breasted nuthatch. This was taken up in Ohio. In Toledo, Ohio, they have about 4 or 5 parks up there that have what they call windows to wildlife. And they're set in a wooded area. And they'll have one wall will be all windows, and then they'll have bird feeders sitting right outside the windows. And the birds come there because they're fed all year round. And this little chickadee got a grub out of this tree, and he looked very proud of it. This is a smaller nuthatch. It's called a red-breasted nuthatch. These nuthatches are a little smaller than most sparrows. This is a cactus wren. I took this cactus wren out in Phoenix, Arizona at a botanical garden there. The only time I've ever seen one, at least close enough to get a picture of it. This is a house wren taken near my house at a bird feeder. Again, I use these sticks for the perches for the birds to come up to the feeder. This is a Carolina wren, also a one that came to the feeder. This is one of the prettiest songbirds. The song is a beautiful, beautiful song that the Carolina wren has. This bird is courtesy of Josie. This was taken from her front porch. Josie has bird houses for bluebirds around her yard. And these birds fledged from her birdhouse. And this next slide is the parent, one of the parent birds that came to at a twig that was by her bird feeder. Then the next several birds are birds that I took, are migrants that come through Florida at Fort DeSoto. About 3 years ago, before COVID, I was there and got quite a few pictures of different kind of songbirds that were migrating through. And near the East Beach, they have this water fountain that's, I mentioned before, that's like a pile of rocks that the water bubbles up through them and the birds come around that fountain. This is a gray cheek thrush, smaller bird that winters up in Canada, but it comes through Fort DeSoto in about mid-April. A Swainson's thrush, another bird that come through as a migrant coming through Fort DeSoto. This is a female robin with a big fat worm. I took this up in southern Michigan, where my son lives up there, and I went up there to visit him, and there was a lot of robins around there because that's where they get the worms in that fresh grass. The next one is a male. The male robin's much handsomer than the female, much more colorful, more contrasting. And here he got worms and went up and sit on the fence post. This is a brown thrasher, courtesy of Larry Sutton. Larry allowed me to use his backyard to set up my camera on a tripod and take pictures of birds that came around his feeders. This particular thrush had a appetite for the mealworms that were there. This is the thrush. I forget the name of this thrush, but it's a thrush that was taken in Arizona at the Botanical Garden in Phoenix. I'll get that later, by that later. Not going. This is a gray catbird. This gray catbird came to the backyard and was on this stump that I had bird seeds or a suet stuck to the stump. And for the picture, I don't like to show the suet, so I cloned that out of my picture. But this is a catbird that came there perched to get the suet. This is a northern mockingbird. This particular northern mockingbird had the biggest eye of any of the mockingbirds I ever saw. It seemed like it had an extra large eye, which kind of intrigued me. This is a starling, or European starling, I think they call it. This picture was taken out in Utah at my friend's house that allowed me to use his backyard, where birds came to his backyard. It's a yellow rump warbler in Florida. The yellow rump warbler has 3 yellow spots, one on top of the head, one on the breast, by the wing, which you can see here. It's not very bright. And then it has the one it's named for is the rump, big patch on the rump. The next picture is the same type of bird. This is one that's in full breeding plumage. It was taken up in Ohio near Lake Erie. Here in the full breeding plumage, you can see it's a much more colorful, handsomer bird. This is the Cape May warbler that was taken in Fort DeSoto. This is a male. This is a yellow warbler. I missed one. That's all right. This is a yellow warbler. And this next one was another yellow warbler. Not a yellow warbler, it's a pine warbler. My mistake. I get it mixed up sometimes too. This is a pine warbler. And the pine warbler has a yellow eye ring, which helps identify it from other birds. But some of them, down in Florida at least, some of them can look kind of dull like this one, or other ones can look bright like the one preceding. This is a hooded warbler taken in a sanctuary in southern Florida. This is a yellow-throated warbler taken in my backyard that came to the feeder. And it's one of the warblers that keeps his good looks during the winter as well as the summer. quite a handsome bird. This is a black cap warbler. It was taken down in Fort DeSoto. And I put these sticks around near the fountain. You're not allowed to put a stick from the fountain, but you can put some sticks near the fountain. And that's what I did here, and the birds take advantage of it. This is the female of the black foal. This is a Louisiana water thrush. The Louisiana water thrush has this white eyebrow, they call it, that the white eyebrow goes to the back of the head. In the northern water thrush, that eyebrow gets narrow toward the back of the head. In the Louisiana water thrush, it stays kind of wide all the way across. This is a black-throated green warbler, also taken at Fort DeSoto. This fountain is a very popular place, and I got several pictures of birds around the fountain. And then last year, I couldn't get any because of COVID. I couldn't go there. It was closed. But now this spring, when I went there this spring, I was there a couple different days, and I think I only got 1 or 2 pictures around the fountain. I think it was because of an osprey nest that was right nearby. It was an active osprey nest. And I think the birds are kind of put off by having a hawk right nearby. This is a northern Parula warbler, also another bird that came to the fountain down in Fort DeSoto, all migrants. This is a yellow warbler that came to the fountain. And this bird seemed to have a connection to me, like he was looking straight at me, wondering, what the heck am I doing? And, but he did, sometimes you get a bird that seems to have a connection with you, that he's looking straight at you and wonder just what the heck you're doing. This is the most common sparrow that came to my feeder, is the chipping sparrow. I had lots of chipping sparrow pictures. Sometimes I had like 7 of them or more come to the feeder at the same time. This picture was taken in Arizona. This is an English sparrow, or a house sparrow, that was not common right around where I live, but it's kind of a pest sparrow in a lot of places. And the male is kind of a handsome sparrow. This is a Vesper sparrow that was taken in Colorado. In Colorado, this was not in the mountains, it was in the plains. In the east of the mountains in Colorado, they have a large area that's like pasture land and plain, not mountainy at all. And I was out there and drove around. Didn't see a lot of birds, but I did see this Vesper sparrow. And this is a, what is that one? Another sparrow that was taken along the fence line in going back to Lake Kissimmee. Savannah sparrow. This is a white-throated sparrow. This was taken up in Ohio and around Toledo, one of the parks there. The only picture I've ever got of a white-throated sparrow. Another sparrow that looks a lot like it, but doesn't have the white throat. This is called a white crown sparrow. I think of this as the fattest sparrow I've ever seen. Much fatter than all the other sparrows I've got pictures of. I have the next 3 pictures are called dark-headed jonquils, or junco. Juncos have different phases, and this one is called Oregon, but they're all the same species, but with different phases. This next one is a slate-colored jonquil. And these were the jonquils I showed were taken in Utah. This next one was taken in Colorado at the national park out there. This is a dark-eyed or dark-headed. dark-headed phase. This is an even or red-breasted grosbeak. This is a first-year male. The first-year male has these little black spots on its breast. After the first year, it loses these spots and just has a red and white breast without the spots. Very colorful bird. This is a summer tanager. When you see one of these summer tanagers flying up toward the feeder, first first thought is it's a cardinal. And then you see it don't have a crest. So you can know right away it's not a cardinal. It's a summer tanager, all red. And the female, this is the female. This was taken at Fort DeSoto. And most of them have a little more greenish color than this one. This one has a more of a yellow gold color, but most of them have a little more green on their plumage. This is the cardinal that came to my feeder in my backyard. The birds I took in my backyard, I had my tripod set up by the window and the curtain of the blind open and shutters closed part way so that it blocked off the light, and a towel hanging down above the camera so it blocked off more of the light. And then these birds would come to my feeder and they'd land on the sticks first. And that's when I'd get the picture. Cardinals seem to have an extra large bill, and that's good for them to chunk up the seeds. The male is very colorful. This is an indigo bunting. This one was taken in Fort DeSoto at the fountain, and it's one of my early pictures. The next indigo bunting is the female. The female is a rather plain looking bird. It has a very faint dusting of blue on its wing and tail, but it's very faint. But other than that, it's just a very plain bird. It's an indigo bunting, also taken at Fort DeSoto, the only time I've ever seen one. And I was lucky enough to get a picture of it. And this is the female of the painted bunting. It has a kind of a yellow-green color to it. But other than that, it doesn't have any outstanding marking. This is an eastern meadowlark. This was taken at Joe Overstreet Landing on the way back to Lake Kissimmee. And they like to stand on these fence posts and sing. This is a yellow-headed blackbird taken at Wildlife Reserve in Utah at Bear River. They were very common there. This is a female red-winged blackbird. The female red-winged blackbird is looks more like a sparrow, or that doesn't look like the male at all. The next picture is the male. The males like to perch on weed stalks or tops of small trees and sing, and they do a lot of that, especially in the spring. That's when this one was taken. This is a common grackle. I had common grackles come around my feeder, and they were migrating through. They weren't there except in the spring or fall. There would be about 6 or 8 of them that come around at the same time and be around my feeder. They're different from the boat-tailed grackle in that they have a yellow eye. This is the more common grackle that we see in our area all year round. This is a female of the boat-tailed grackle. And here's the male. This is a cowbird, the female. The female is another bird that has no outstanding markings. It's all kind of all over gray or grayish brown with no outstanding markings. They like to go in fields around pastures. Here's the brown-headed cowbird, the male. The male has a brown head, and that's how it gets its name. Here's Baltimore Oriole that was taken up in Ohio. And when I was up there, the redbud trees were in bloom. And this one looked like it was sitting on a swing. I wasn't sure if this one was a male or a female. It looks like a male, but they have some females that have what they call a maximum black or on their head. But the wing looks a little different here than the males. But I like this picture because of the swing. Another picture of a female Baltimore Oriole. This was more typical of the way the females look. They can be a lot lighter colored than this and have more yellow on them than this one has. This one has quite a little bit of dark on the head, but they can have almost very little. This is an orchard oriole, the male. This was taken down at Fort DeSoto near the fountain. And here's the female of the orchard oriole. This is a house finch that was taken in Utah at the feeders. And here is the female of the house finch. We have the house finch is fairly common here in Florida too, all year round. This is a purple finch, or purple finch that was more of a rosy color. Quite a colorful bird. The only one I've ever seen. This was taken up in Ohio at the park. And here's the female. This is a goldfinch that was taken in Florida near the time when they start to mold into the summer plumage. The one at the bottom is, you can see it has more yellow on it. It's getting ready to mold into the summer plumage. The next slide is one in a full breeding plumage taken up in Ohio. This was taken in middle of May up in Ohio at one of the parks. And that's the end of my presentation. I hope you enjoyed it. If any of you have any questions, now's the time to ask them.
Thank you, Leroy. I'll turn it over to Michelle.
All right, thanks, Leroy. We have one question from Barbara. She asks, how do you get such intense color in your photos?
Yeah, the vibrant colors?
Yes.
Well, a couple things. First thing is I have good lenses. I'm shooting now at this time. I'm shooting with the 500. Most of my bird pictures with a 500 millimeter lens, and I use a good focus and use a tripod and or some kind of a support for a lot of them. Although now I'm starting to use less support for some of them now because I've learned how to, their techniques have gotten better, so I can use handheld now, that whereas I used to just have to use a tripod or a brace of some kind for everything. A lot of the pictures I took on the fence posts and along the fences along the road, I took from sitting in my car, and I would use a bean bag or a sock with a bunch of beans in it and a knot tied in it, full of use a bird seed or something in a sock, and then rest my camera on that to brace it. But a steady camera, fast shutter speed. Fast shutter speed will give you the sharp picture, and correct exposure will give you the vibrant colors, and good lighting along with that will help you get the vibrant colors. Next question. Any other questions? Only got one question.
Don't see any other questions right now.
Okay.
Yeah, it was a great presentation, Leroy.
Well, thank you for that. I just
Great
stumbled a
job.
little bit, but I did my best.
You did a great job, Leroy. You know, first time out the gate, you did wonderful.
Yeah.
So, other
Chelsea,
than that,
Are you back in Florida, Chelsea?
yes, I'm back home. Back home. And I got a cottage. up north.
Right, right.
I just closed yesterday. on
Yeah,
it.
this was a terrific presentation. What we're going to do is finish the recording, and we're going to post it to our new YouTube channel. And this will be the first one that goes on the channel.
Good deal. Are you going to send out an email to the general public when it's out on YouTube?
Yes, I will. Let me stop the recording.